AI is the same boat. You actually have to train it. It's going to get things wrong. It's going to lie to you a little bit. But as you give it more data and more experience, it could accelerate to a 35-year-old experienced mid-level executive pretty fast. Yeah, it's a fantastic question. It's one that a lot of businesses are going through right now in the various form of transforming their profit and loss of their company. So the last 2 years, a lot of companies that have used artificial intelligence have used it to get efficiency or productivity and to potentially do what I think is a very simple thing, reduce labor, right? So if you have customer service people, you have 100 people, you start fragmenting those calls and you say 90% of those calls are not that valuable to us, 10% are really valuable. So if only 10% are really valuable, you only need 10 humans for that call, but 90% are just, we need to get an efficacy or accuracy of 60 or 65%. We can start automating that and then we can reduce headcount, right? So that's been the last couple of years. The bigger thing has been finding value creation now. So what's the one hero use case where you can unlock new dollar value with artificial intelligence technology, right? And AI, you can't mistake it. It's a hammer, it's a tool. You have to have a problem that you're attacking it with. And so we're seeing the best companies look for R&D and automating R&D. For example, if you're in pharmaceutical industry, you're using artificial intelligence to upload all your past data to find new drug molecules and to go a lot faster and simulate things, right? So I always tell companies, the best place to start is holistically look at your profit and loss, your revenue, your operational cost, your different operating activities. Figure out where you can apply that technology to get efficiency, right? Superpower your people to be 3 to 4x more productive. An example there is in coding. If you have coders, they could be 8 to 11 times more productive with GitHub Copilot or Replit, these two technologies. And showing kind of companies that they can do this in very minor ways as they execute is incredibly valuable just to open their aperture of what's actually possible. But then from there, you quickly move into a more strategic, let's find one way to create value and actually supercharge our business in a unique way. And so I always tell companies that it's time to definitely experiment and prototype on efficiency, but it's also time to experiment on value creation. And then moving to scale is actually still incredibly hard. And so this is why you see AI being used for marketing and customer service and lower efficacy and accuracy type of industries. But actually moving towards a scaled solution requires a significant cost. And so this is why we always kind of paint the picture of pilot a lot, but when you're talking about scale, we have to consider the cost benefit return of artificial intelligence, which is actually quite loaded in terms of data center, chips, personalization, data to use. And so you have to have a significant use case to be able to implement this at scale. And so the only significant use cases we've seen are cannibalizing current businesses like cars with self-driving cars, right? And so there's kind of things like that. It's a great way to just start thinking about this. And then we have a little bit of a framework that I'll talk about. I call it find it, bottle it, scale it. So in the find it row, you're finding the use case, the problem, the job to be done that you want to solve, right? In the bottle it row, this is a little bit harder for people. What data do you have that you can train AI on? Like you would train a 19-year-old kid, right? AI right now is like a 19-year-old human, okay? So as you train a 19-year-old human, you give it experience, you give it examples, and as it returns a result, hopefully you don't fire the 19-year-old kid right away, right? You actually give it a little bit more experience, you give it iterations, right? Or give him or her or they iterations. AI is the same boat. You actually have to train it. It's gonna get things wrong. It's gonna lie to you a little bit. But as you give it more data and more experience, it can accelerate to a 35-year-old experienced mid-level executive pretty fast. And that bottle it row is so important to understand what data you have, data that you could train it, for then AI to answer your questions. So like a human, you ask questions and they return you answers. That's what in the AI vocabulary we call prompting. And so how you would talk to a human on how to get answers, that's what you call prompting and prompting consciousness that you have to develop. And so that's the bottle it row. And as you do that, you start thinking of quick ways to kind of prototype this to replace humans with AI. And that's a kind of good framework to start thinking about executing pilots, is find it, bottle it, and then scaling it is a whole different function in itself. Those three verticals are actually very similar. So if I step back and kind of talk about those three verticals itself, people kind of forget healthcare and agriculture are the same industry. They're both the same life sciences. Whatever we put in the human body, we put in Mother Earth, right? And really, when you're in artificial intelligence and you're a senior, and it's been 25 years for me being involved in this, you think in data layers, right? And so when I look at the human body, I really look at a specific human's data layers. What's their genomic profile? What's their proteomic, their protein profile? What's their metabolomic, their metabolism? What's their phenotypic, their blood type? The more I can measure these layers, some I just measure once, some I have to measure more continuous, I could draw a line through those layers and I can get a biomarker of disease of that human. And that's where I could be preventative and prescriptive and more personalized to them, right? If I do that, I've solved healthcare, right? I've unlocked data layers for humans because their outcome that they care about pretty typically is longevity. How long do I live? Okay. In agriculture, Mother Earth, her human body is farm fields. In farm fields, you have data layers too. You have nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. You have an omic profile as well. The more you can measure her, you get her biomarker of disease, and you can do the same personalized, prescriptive, preventative type of applications, right? There's one difference with Mother Earth versus human body. We optimize for productivity, meaning babies. We just want a lot of corn bushels per acre, right? And so really those commonality across those two industry, transportation is also the same, except you're looking at the whole earth or road segments in the same way. And you're looking at different data layers. What's the base map? What's the foot traffic? What's the car traffic? What's the speed? What's the accident rate? So it's a common kind of Maslow's hierarchy of data science. When you look at what to collect or produce, in these three industries, it's called geospatial and temporal data. What time and what kind of zoom level of pixelation on geospatial data do I need? Whether it's human body, farm field, or road segments, or Earth itself and traffic, right? When you ground yourself on that, you could start realizing, how do I use that data to make decisions, whether human or artificial intelligence, right? And then you think about the outcome you're optimizing for. In the human body, it's longevity. In Mother Earth, it's productivity. In transportation, it's usually also just efficiency or productivity itself, right? And then from that outcome and from that kind of collection of data, you start thinking of the efficacy and accuracy of the decisions you have to make. For healthcare, I have to be pretty 99% sure that I'm giving you a drug that actually treats your disease. In farming, I have to be like 70 to 80% sure. In transportation, I have to be like 40 to 50% sure, unless it's a self-driving car where I have to be 100% sure, right? And so AI is the reason why it's so disruptive. It's cross-cutting as long as you have this way of thinking, right? And then from there, you start seeing some commonalities and patterns across industry that really add value, right? What I learned in transportation is that everything's a marketplace in transportation. It's supply and demand. How many buses are available? How many people want to take a bus? What should I price that bus? And what's interesting about that is that seems like a simple pricing algorithm that a human can decide or can model out. But then you start layering in the new world of social media, and you start realizing that people also value experiences. So it's not just a functional job to be done. I need to get from point A to point B. There's also an emotional job to be done of, did I like how I got to point A to point B? Did I like it so much that I want to talk about it to my friends? Did I hate it so much that I want to tweet about it so the world never takes this bus, right? So where AI kind of adds a layer into these functional and emotional jobs to be done is they actually pull in a lot of data from across the web or across any personalized data set you use, and it could do dynamic pricing better than anybody else. And what's really interesting is we're seeing that. I think we're seeing some data, it's early to tell, that AI is causing a little bit of inflation, right? Because of the way that it's dynamic pricing. And so there's hidden things like that we don't realize. But, across these three industries, there's actually quite a lot of commonalities. And I've always looked to study and then kind of divulge the patterns across industry that can be applied across this boats, and really understand that from a data standpoint as a foundation of AI and what you collect and produce is key for managing the outcomes that you want to achieve. Yeah, I'll take a positive spin on this, okay? And I think there's three phases here. The first phase is you're not doing anything, right? And so I see a lot of companies, and these are big companies. I'm talking like companies that are $6 billion companies, but they have a niche industry, okay? And because they have a niche, because they have a strong channel, because they have strong customer base, because they might not have a lot of competitors, And because now with foreign policy shifting, things are moving a little bit more inwards, they feel okay that they don't have to risk this technology. They can be a second mover advantage. The issue with that is that you're not on the learning curve. So if a startup comes up or if a competitor comes up using AI and they're that much more efficient than you, then you jump on the AI learning curve and you're kind of behind by 6 months, right? And so you're always going to be catching up. And this technology is something we've never seen. It's rapidly inventing almost every minute. And so you have to be on the learning curve to just get that network effect of learning, right? I think phase two with AI, a lot of people are piloting, but they don't have just a foundation of understanding how their piloting gives a return on the company balance sheet, but also from a user experience standpoint or a customer experience standpoint. Like, for example, I've been using different internet companies and trying to negotiate my internet as well as my home insurance and car insurance. And clearly when I talk to them, I'm talking to AI. And clearly when they're emailing me, they're emailing policies that AI created. And clearly when I get both those experiences, I hate those companies with an extreme passion. And I just said, I don't want to deal with them anymore. And what's interesting, just literally 6 months ago, I had humans. And even though I didn't like those companies, right, because they're increasing costs, the humans were able to talk me down or mitigate that emotional gap that I have and felt like I had a partner. Now, companies are really getting this wrong, and they're maybe prioritizing company efficiency or jumping on the curve without actually putting another metric on there about their customer experience. Okay, so you're seeing a lot of customers switching here. So you can't just implement AI for AI's sake. You actually have to be a little bit multidimensional. You have to optimize for your company balance sheet and making sure you're more productive and you can operate more efficient. But you also can't forget the customer experience that your customers want, right? And so you actually have to still kind of do that, all right? And then the third aspect where I think companies get it wrong, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit where you can make a lot of money and value here. I just mentioned one, dynamic pricing. If you are not using AI on either B2B or direct to consumer to actually do dynamic pricing for you, you're probably missing out on a ton of value, right? And this is as simple as if I buy groceries at Walmart, a US grocery store chain here, they could do dynamic pricing. They could use the mobile app, and instead of $1 for a bag of chips, they can see through multiple layers of not just supply demand, but also how people talk about it on social media, how people have an affinity for it. If there's a TikTok referral, viral campaign going off ketchup chips, right? They can start pricing it a little bit higher, and they can unlock massive value that could change your quarterly call. And so I think you look for the low-hanging fruits where humans are not performing as well as you think. And where humans are not performing as well as you think, you start thinking about leveraging AI technology to unlock that value. And we're seeing that across the board. And so I think companies are overthinking this. I think they should use it and they should start tracking their value of it. And then to scale it is a different beast. It's a different phase to think about. When I give public speeches, it's less about a speech or a lecture. It's more about how, I've grown up in my career. I'm a builder and I'm an operator. I've launched many companies and I've worked at big companies. Now I am better at launching 0 to 1 products than managing 1,800 Generation Z people. I'm not great at that, right? And so as I build and operate, there's a practicality, there's a feasibility, there's a viability to what I do. And what I've been able to do now as I've gone to the academic side, I've been able to extract what I think are long living frameworks that'll stand the test of time, that unlock value. But I'm always pairing that with how to do it, showing you examples. I am a technologist by nature and trade. I love playing with new technology, but playing is not the right word because I love implementing it, whether it's at my own companies or other companies. And so I always give a real world view, real examples of how companies can implement a technology and achieve a framework of value today. And so I would just kind of say when I'm giving my speeches, I want them to come away and say, I really know what to do as my next step. He just showed me how to do it. And on top of that next step, although it's tactical, I actually can talk to my board about a longer term strategy to transition and transform our company. And so that's my goal, just very kind of direct from there. And then, hopefully they also like me. That's really it.